It's an honor and a pleasure to introduce the president of the Association Française des Sciences Économiques, Anne Perrot. As you know, she is an influential economist specialized in competition and regulation and involved in important French institutions. She obtained a doctorate in mathematics from the University of Paris-Saclay and a doctorate in economics from the University of Paris-I before embarking on a brilliant academic career. Professor of economics at the University of Paris-I and the ENS and fellow of the Department of Economics at Sciences Po Paris since 2013, she has taught at the Paris School of Economics, the Bruxelles School of Competition, and Sciences Po Paris, and trained generations of students. From 2004 to 2012, she was vice president of the French Competition Authority, and from 2012 to 2018, member and then president of MAP, France's leading provider of economic analysis and in the field of competition and antitrust. Finally, Anne Perrot joined the Inspection Générale des Finances in 2018. Beyond her remarkable scientific outlook, I am impressed by her commitment to public service. She has belonged to several public think tanks on competition policy, such as the Economic Advisory Group on Competition Policy at the European Commission, or the Groupe d'experts of the Commission de Régulation de l'Énergie. She has also been a member of several commissions appointed by the French government on subjects such as telecoms deregulation. Today, she will present the work on a highly topical subject, the public policy towards the digital sector and the media, how to protect pluralism of information and defend democracy against the manipulation of information in the media, and especially on the networks. Dear Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefano, and good morning to all. I'm going to go through a series of topics that are all related to the digital economy and the digitalization of economy, starting from the early 2000s, let's say, until now. So these public policies towards digital sector and platforms have gone through very different stages across time in line with the itself evolutive issues raised by the digital technologies. There was Web 1.0, 2.0, etc. And today, generative AI that raises very new questions, including for the media sector, I'm going to discuss further. So at the beginning, the type of problems that we had facing the arrival of the digital economy was that platforms used to disrupt old business models, like, for instance, online sales arrived in the market of physical sales, and then VTCs arrived in the market for public transportation in cities against taxis. And then a second step, so it was simply, the matter was simply creating a level playing field, allowing each of these services to compete on a, let's say, a fair model. Then arrived the monopolization of services, either new services or services previously offered by competitive markets in the physical world, like, for instance, price comparison websites, which did not exist before websites. And then these issues concern mainly at that time competition policy, with a theoretical background that you all know probably, industrial economics, network economics. But there are also other aspects linked with the digital economy that have interaction with competitive issues. I'm not going to talk about all this, of course, but just let me mention labor economics. Are platform workers, for instance, workers, employees or self-employed? This has to do with competition too. The protection of privacy and targeted advertising, that has a lot to do with competitive issues. The problem of copyright and the remuneration of contents, which is at the core of the problems between the media and platforms. And today, more macroeconomic issues like those of the Draghi report, like the question of how to create an environment that would be favorable to innovation and productivity in Europe. Let me just mention now that the difficulty with the issue of digitalization is that if you intervene too early with policies, there is a risk to block innovation and to stop innovation. But if you intervene too late, then you have problems with dominant position and so on. And so it's quite difficult to have the right frontier between these time problems. So all these issues I mentioned are very closely linked. For instance, the fact that recent regulation of privacy, I will develop that a bit later, has increased the market power of big platforms. Sometimes we say in French, le diable est dans les détails, the devil is in the details. When you want to protect consumers of privacy issues, you may sometimes increase the market power of big platforms that I will explain that further. And also decisions of courts that have nothing to do with competition courts regarding the labor status of workers can also matter for competition. Among the many sectors, all the sectors concerned by the changes due to digitalization, the media are particularly impacted. First, they incur a loss of revenue and the upheaval of their business model, in particular through advertising, the changes in advertising. They incur the competition of newcomers, new actors, influencers, social media, etc. And of course, we all know the problem of fake news and of generative artificial intelligence, which is another more recent problem that media encounters. And to deal with the media problem, we should have in mind that truthful information has characteristics of a public good, like knowledge or education, but is very often, in most cases, provided by private actors, which makes it a bit difficult to deal with. And so it is a very important issue to guarantee that we have truthful and reliable information in this new context. So I'm going to go through these three different steps. First, what are the specific issues of the digital economy and economic mechanisms that are at work specifically in the digital sector? First, this digital sector exhibits massive economies of scales. The main costs are the cost of development of algorithms and the construction of the platform, so that fixed costs are the main part of costs. Marginal cost, that is serving one more user, is of course almost nothing once the platform is established, and so variable costs are almost zero. In addition to these supply side effects, you have demand side effects due to network effects, which means that a larger number of users increases the value of the platform for each user. So you prefer to be connected with a large platform rather than with a small one, because it gives you the opportunity of more interactions with users. So this can be true either through direct network effects, that is, between users of the same social network, you have more people to interact with, or indirect network effects between users, buyers and sellers, for instance, drivers and people who want to go through the city, advertisers and audience, and etc. And these effects, of course, increase the utility of being affiliated to large platforms. And of course, this generates also externalities in the sense where one more user increases the value of the platform of all the other users already present on the platform. So all these factors, economies of scale, network effects, externality generated by networks effect, favor the large size of the actors and explain why it's difficult to sustain competitive prices and competitive markets in the digital economy. So all this explains the large size of platform. As users, we prefer to be affiliated to a large size platform. As car drivers, we also prefer a platform where many users are connected. It's the same for hotel reservation and so on. I could give more examples. And this also explains their growth strategies. That is the fact that it's not so costly for this platform to expand from their core market to other services, like, for instance, from Google Search to Google Shopping, Google News, Google Maps, and so on. And this is especially true in the ad tech sector, because when you offer multiple services, then you can also collect data on the users and make more information. You get more information to make targeted advertising. And this also allows geographic expansion at low cost, because again, of course, you have to translate the platform, but the core of the platform is really the algorithm and, of course, the servers and so on. So this explains why the main issues raised by digital economy are competition issues. Behavior first, that is, the abuses of dominant position are very close to very, very large position, which are not necessarily abusive, but that are more prone to become abusive, and market structure too, because mergers, it's the case of merger, when the growth of this platform are acquired through acquisitions, and there are a number of acquisitions that allowed this platform to become dominant on a given market. For instance, in the competition world, we know that when Google was authorized by the European Commission to buy DoubleClick some years ago, this was really the beginning of Google becoming dominant on the ad tech services and to get advertising revenues. But even these competition problems have evolved over time. The first cases before competition authorities concerned the fact that some agents were complaining about not being able to enter on the market because of barriers that was imposed by traditional business models. And the problem was to create a level playing field where old and new business model could compete together. Like, for instance, in the French Competition Authority, we had thousands of cases concerning Uber and the taxis. And some days ago, the taxis were in strike in Paris. And one of the problems they put forward was, again, a competition with VTCs. Then the type of abuses that arose were of any kind, abuses of dominant position on vertically related markets or horizontally related markets. I will give some example of this. And there are, of course, still a lot of cases that have to deal with the dominant position of Google, of Apple, of Facebook, etc., etc. But then data and privacy protection arise as a major problem in the digital economy, and more recently copyright, which is of course, or what we call neighboring rights or related rights, which is a major problem for the media. So let me just give a partial list of the problems that have been dealt with between 2005 and 2010. Taxis versus Uber mainly, before the French Competition Authority, where the issue is to create a level playing field without any unjustified constraints that, of course, taxis wanted to impose on VTCs, like, for instance, the fact that they wanted that VTCs would return to their basis between two drives, or a lot of financial requirements that were not imposed on taxis, but that taxis would want to impose on VTCs. The Google Android case, which was one of the first big case examined by the European Commission, which is the installation of Google as a default operating system on smartphones and on smartphones mainly. Booking versus hotels. So this is a case of dominant position where Booking, the reservation platform, imposed to hotels not to price their rooms at a lower price than on the platform, which of course leads to a kind of collusion between platforms because no one is able to propose a price lower than the one on Booking, for instance. These clauses are called parity clauses. They were treated at the same time by the French, Swedish and Italian competition authorities that took similar positions. The French case in 2021 of Google on the market of online advertising, where the main issue is monopolization without interoperability between the ad server and the auction platforms. I will explain what this is about. And even more recently, Google versus the media on related rights, that is the fact that Google uses contents provided by media without paying for these media. And there is an even more recent case in 2025 that again concerned the media. You have 200 French publishers that filed a complaint very recently against Meta concerning the delay in complying with GDPR. We could say it's a bit old, yes, but during that time Meta didn't apply GDPR rules, whereas the media did, so they incurred a loss in advertising revenues. And many French and foreign media complained against X and about neighboring rights, that is the fact that X does not pay for the contents it publishes, and some media filed against LinkedIn for the same reason. So, for economists, what are the new issues raised for competitive analysis by the digitalization of the economy? At first sight, one could say competition policy has all the tools to deal with competition problems raised by platform, nothing new, and so we simply need to apply these tools to new technology, and that's it. So there is no way to improve the way competition policy works. But it's not completely true. The first issue that was raised by these new technologies was the definition of the relevant market. The relevant market is the market on which there are competitive interactions between players, between actors. And so a first question that was solved on a case-by-case basis, of course, was to know whether physical and online markets were the same relevant markets or two different relevant markets. And it is only quite recently, in 2015, that the French Competition Authority decided that for the sales of computers and TVs in the Fnac-Darty merger case, that these two markets, online and physical markets, were the same relevant market. And this was done on the basis of empirical analysis showing that there were adaptation of prices, for instance, in a given location, in a given shop, to what was happening on the internet. That internet was proposing promotion in a given city where the local market was affected in the physical dimension. And so on the basis of all these very numerous and multiple empirical studies, the competition authority decided that there was a single market. But you see that it was not so obvious to do so. And of course, here it's not really a matter of theory, it's more a matter of empirical analysis and analysis of the case. Why is it a bit difficult? Because it makes it necessary to look not only at demand substitutability, what we do in general to define relevant markets in competitive analysis, but also at supply substitutability. For instance, you can have very different business models competing together. If you take the case of Amazon, Amazon is a retailer, as in any vertical relationship between producers, retailers, consumers, because Amazon sells itself products, but it is also a platform and a two-sided market because it is a marketplace where sellers and buyers are put together to make transactions. And so you see that if you analyze the behavior of Amazon on the downside market, on the retail market, you have to have an analysis that takes into account this platform dimension, two-sided market dimension, but also the vertical, more usual relationship. And this makes the analysis much more complex. Second issue for economists, the price tests. Usually you can have an idea of the market power of a firm performing price tests, like you compare price and cost, and you compute the margin and so on. So you make a range of price-cost tests. So what if services are offered at zero price? This makes the test much more complex to make. For instance, how do you perform a price-cost test with Google search? Google search, of course, you pay for announcements when you are an advertiser, but when you are a user, you don't pay anything for Google services on this side of the market. So how do you define the market power of Google? Of course, you have the market share, you have things like that, but it's not that simple. So how to make a SNP test? A SNP is a small but significant non-transitory increase in prices. That is one of the tests that competition authority make in order to look at whether or not there is a market power somewhere. You cannot make a SNP test with zero price, so you have to reconsider completely the way you perform these tests. In a predation case, predation is something that is usually defined by the fact that prices are under costs, so this allows to exclude competitors, but once competitors are excluded, then you can enjoy your market power and recover the losses that you have made when proposing prices under costs. We have a lot of literature explaining how we should perform price-cost tests when predation is involved. So this is not easy at all with zero prices. And moreover, how to account for externalities between two sides of the market. Like, for instance, when the platform says, okay, offer a zero price service on this side, but on the other side of the market, advertising for instance, my prices are competitive ones. So you have to deal with a completely new environment, and you cannot simply apply the usual price cost test, for instance, in a case of two-sided markets. Another issue is the effects of algorithm. First, we suspect that some collusive behavior can be implemented without any human intervention, really, between algorithms that check the prices on different websites. So algorithm, even more in the area of artificial intelligence, algorithms are able, like human, to understand that if you don't compete too much with your neighbor, then your neighbor will probably stop competing with you too, and this will raise the profit. So if you explain to your algorithm that first you should look at other prices of the platform selling the same thing, and second, you should also not compete too harsh in order to maximize profit, it can be the case that algorithms produce themselves a collusion between platforms. But of course, the main case is the change of an algorithm. It was the case with the Google Shopping case. Suddenly, Google Shopping, the price comparison website service of Google, decided to change a little bit the way the algorithm was working. And then suddenly, all the price comparison websites disappeared from the market or lose market share and then complain to European Commission. So this was clearly implemented by an algorithm, but you see that it is not so easy for a competition authority to detect such behavior, to analyze such behavior, and of course to sanction and fine such behavior. So the Google Shopping case, so you see that all these problems were problems that were raised as the business as usual work of competition authority. I have a new case, I collect data, I think about the theoretical model that will help understanding the competitive environment of this case, and then I perform my usual empirical tests, and then in the end I take a decision, guilty, not guilty, a fine, what fine, etc. This is business as usual for competition authority. The problem is that when the Google Shopping, the timing, if you take the timeline of the Google Shopping case, this is really terrible for competition authorities. Why? The lawsuit was introduced in 2010. Google was fined in 2015. The sanction was confirmed by the Court of Justice last year. So you see that between the first time the case was brought before the European Commission, and last year, 15 years have been during which all the other price comparison websites have disappeared. So obviously, the action of competition authority is not in line with the timing of digital markets, and there was a beginning of discussion on the need for a more efficient and quick action by competition authority. But this was not so easy, because this raises a debate which is not over between competition policy on the one hand and regulation on the other hand. Competition policy is an ex-post policy, except for merger analysis, which is an ex-ante examination of what will be the effects of the merger on the market. But in all other cases, most cases are either cases of collusion or cases of abuses of dominant position, and all these cases are ex-post cases. So you let the firm act on market, and then afterwards, if you have the impression or if you have complaint according to which there was infringement to law, then you examine this. In regulation, the case is completely different, because regulation is something that tells I define ex ante, a priori, what are the behaviors that will be forbidden, or what behavior will be mandatory for firms. So this is a philosophical debate, which is not so easy to deal with. So finally, compromise was found with two really important texts, the DMA and the DSA. I will talk much more on DMA. So Digital Services Act on the DSA concerns mainly the regulation of contents that are present on platforms, on social networks, and so on. It does not impose or prohibit specific contents, but it imposes to platform the obligation to set up moderation systems, for instance. So you see that, for instance, all the debate around what X is doing or not doing is exactly at the core of the DSA. The Digital Market Act is a small step of competition policy in the field of regulation, because the Digital Market Act concerns competitive behavior of gatekeepers. That is, it is a asymmetric regulation. All the platforms are not submitted to the obligation of the DMA, only platforms that are considered gatekeepers. So what are the gatekeepers? The DMA defines what a gatekeeper is and relies on self-assessment by platforms that have to assess themselves if they can be considered a gatekeeper or not. So now the list of the present gatekeeper has been stopped and defined, and to these gatekeepers some behavior are imposed and some other behavior are prohibited. For instance, it imposes interoperability of messaging services. It obliged the platforms to offer facilities to unsubscribe or uninstall some applications, for instance, on smartphones. And it makes mandatory the information of the European Commission about acquisitions and mergers, even under the thresholds of the general merger control by the Commission. And among other things that are prohibited, self-preferences, this will be important for the media sector in a moment, self-preferences of their own service by gatekeepers on either a vertically related market or a horizontally related market, making a dominant software the default software, like a search engine, for instance, browsers, maps, services, or whatever, and the use of personal data for targeted advertising without consent. So, of course, there is a debate on how this consent should be collected, etc. But I will skip this. So let me turn now to the media sector. The media sector provides an example of the various issues that are linked to the digital economy. The first effect at the beginning was, of course, a reduction of costs, both for the media themselves and for consumer. That can be, this is of course a positive effect. Major media now obtain a very huge part of their traffic through platform that drive consumers to media. In the UK, for instance, in 2019, 40% of the media obtained their audience through Google and Facebook. And in France, last year, it's 70% of the traffic of press websites that came from Google Discover only. So you see that it's really huge. Second problem that the media face, they face the entry of new actors like pure players that were not there on the market of traditional media, bloggers, influencers. Some of them produce information or so-called information, etc. And competition of media that were before on separate markets. If you go, for instance, on the website of Le Monde, you see that you can watch video, you can also read papers on France Télévisions. So you see that there is a convergence between all the formats of the media, which makes the old regulation inherited from the past very obsolete regarding these evolutions. The behavior of consumers, I will go to that in a moment also, has evolved towards multi-homing. That is, before people mainly watched one channel or two channels of TV for I'm talking about information only, not anything else. They were looking at one or two TV channels. They were a subscriber of one or two newspapers, and that's it. And more and more we observe, and this can be a good thing on a way, that consumers have evolved toward multi-homing, and they are therefore less willing to pay for a given newspaper. If I can look at newspapers' titles on Google, I don't want to pay for one particular newspaper, and so on. So another characteristic is that media are involved both in vertical and horizontal relationship with platforms. They provide content and they pay for ad tech services, so this is a very traditional vertical type relationships. But they also compete for attention and for advertising revenues with platform, and this is horizontal competition and relationship. And so, what are the threats to the business model of traditional medias? Well, let's say it's like taxis and so on. Yes and no. I will explain why later on. First, they incur a loss of revenue from the audience, less willing to pay for media, amplified by the two-sided dimension of platforms, which explains a loss of advertising revenues. And then the dominant position of large platforms exacerbate these losses, because Google and Facebook capture an increasing part of the advertising revenue. I will explain. Let me maybe go a bit quickly on this. So many cases are related to copyright and related rights problem. This problem can approximately be solved in a world without artificial intelligence, but in the artificial intelligence world, then you are totally unable to identify the contents that were used to produce a new output for artificial intelligence. So you cannot do this with text, clearly. So you can do this a little bit in videos. You are sometimes able to recognize through water markings that are small software put on some video contents. You are sometimes able to identify from which video contents a new video was produced by AI, but with text it's simply impossible. So we have to completely abandon the idea of making contents paid through copyright or neighboring right or something like that. Of course, there are other solutions, but not this one. Okay, and the second point that I will develop further, I will skip the other ones, is the fact that the merger control in France concerning media is really inefficient and should be probably totally revised in the digital environment. So what is exactly this loss of revenue? It's the result of a sequential process due really to the platform and two-sided dimension of the media themselves, reinforced by the digital technology. What is this mechanism? Platforms offer for free contents that are usually of degraded quality, that is simply a title and a few lines of a newspaper article, for instance. Consumers find this attractive, and so, for instance, it's very suitable for looking at news in the metro on your smartphone. You don't need to get into a complex paper. You simply see titles and you skip when you're not happy with it. And consumers massively stopped buying newspapers, watching TV, and etc. And this is, of course, the first direct loss of revenue of the media. In France, for instance, you have figures here. In 2010, 465 million euros of advertising, revenues from the readers, and only 300 in 2022. Then, of course, advertisers followed the audience because the advertisers are interested by the audience. So if the audience is no more there, advertisers follow the audience on platforms. So this is the second loss of revenues for physical newspaper, linear TV, etc. Newspapers have lost 70% of their advertising revenue, even going on the web. That is, the advertising that is shown on the web is mainly captured by Google and Facebook for a reason that I will explain. And you see there are two different segments, market segments of advertising on the internet. The advertising linked to search, that is the announcement that you see when you look at Google search, for instance, or the display, that is, you are reading a newspaper article and suddenly you have a video that is displayed on your screen. So on the display revenue, the media now have 10% of the display revenues, whereas social networks have 46% of the display revenue. So this is, of course, a discrepancy that is a major one. The additional risks resulting from AI are even worse. Each user can now ask an AI to produce. I can ask an AI to produce my own information daily content. Please take some videos. Please tell me about the wars on the world. Please tell me about the new reform on taxation in France. I want these topics. You can get videos, papers, etc. And I want my own newspaper, my own media, okay? Personalized media. Then in this type of configuration, you see that medias are only content providers for artificial intelligence, like in vertical relationships where you have producers, retailers, consumers. They are simply producers of contents for retailers that would be the AI. And in this case, of course, they have no advertising revenue at all. So you see that the last step is not necessarily raised now. And this could happen in the very, very near future. So all what I will say here is in a way obsolete already. Not very good advertising. In addition to all this mechanism linked to the two-sided dimension of media, there was the monopolization of ad tech services by Google and Facebook. So let me explain that. Online advertising, it's search, half display. Display, it's so linked to search. I explained that a minute ago. The advertising linked to search is when you make a requirement on the Google search, then you have commercial contents and some other contents. Display is when you have a video, for instance, when you visit a website. In order to show the right video to a given user when it visits a website, of course, you have to go through a lot of technical steps. First, for the advertiser, you have to know what is called the advertising inventories. That is the set of screens that are possible to reach at this moment of time. Okay, Le Monde, Renault, Go Sport, whatever, Booking, etc. And so all these screens, the advertising inventories, are put on a server, which is called a demand-side platform. and that has to be managed by an actor. For websites and for media that want to attract advertisers and get revenue from advertising, the problem is what ads are available for display. Okay? I am GoSport, for instance. Someone is looking at running shoes. What type of display, what type of advertising should I show to that person? This is collected in a supply-side platform. And then after, the problem is the matching. There is somebody that knows a lot about the particular user looking at the GoSport shoes at that moment of time. It's the people who have collected, who have a lot of information of that user. I will talk about third-party cookies in a minute. So an advertiser that has a lot of information can say, this consumer is the person to whom you should show this display. But of course, many advertisers would like to show the same different announcement to a particular consumer. And so what is organized in real time, a mechanism of auctions between advertisers, where the advertiser who is willing to pay the most to show its announcement to this user, given its characteristics, will have to pay the highest, and this is elected through a real-time bidding mechanism. Well, all these functionalities, DSP, SSP, real-time bidding, auction mechanism in real time, all this has been monopolized by Google on the Google environment, by Facebook on the Facebook environment, which means that if you are an advertiser, you have to go through all these technical steps that are ad tech services in order to reach the right announcement to the right user at the right moment. And so one more, in addition to this general mechanism, European agencies for data protection, like for instance the CNIL, that has a lot of positive idea of how to protect consumers against the intrusion or in order to protect private life of consumers. They have limited the use of what is called third-party cookies. So a cookie is simply a little software that you put on any website that you visit. Of course, each firm, if you visit GoSport knows that you went on the website. But if you are Le Monde, you don't know that, except if you have access to third-party cookies. These third-party cookies are collected by firms that are specialized in that kind of business and that sell this data to advertisers. And of course, CNIL doesn't like that at all. And so CNIL has prohibited the use of third-party cookies, more or less prohibited, it's not that clear, but discouraged the use of third-party cookies. As a result, what happened is that the platforms operating in a logged environment, like Google and Facebook, for instance, where you have to write your email to have access, if you have a Gmail, for instance, or when you are a user of Facebook. All these, the logged environment have benefited extremely from the end of third-party cookies. And of course, this has enhanced even more the dominant position of Google and Facebook. And so this is a third source of loss of revenue by the media, because not only advertisers advertise less on media, but even when they do, then the media don't get the part that they would get without the dominant position of Facebook and Meta, for instance. So I will skip that because I think I'm a bit late. Well, just to mention, it is a bit less economics, but it's still frightening. In addition to the loss of revenue, the media suffer also from a loss of trust. In 2022, 32% of French people trust the media, but 62 think that they should be distrust. And they prefer to listen, look, read the contents provided by people they know, that is, friends on Facebook, for instance, rather than the media. So this is, of course, another source of danger for the media. So to focus maybe at last on my last point, weakening of the media has induced concentration because the loss of revenue has provoked a movement of failures, mergers, and concentration of the media. And this, of course, raises governance issues like conflict of interest between owners and the editorial team. Like, for instance, if a new law is going to be adopted and this new law is disfavorable to the owner of the media, how the information will be treated by this media. You have to have very clear governance rule in order to avoid the distortion of the way the information is presented. And so the policy issues are quite important. Is the merger control at work now in the media sector adapted to these issues? And are the guarantees provided by the law sufficient to preserve the independence of the editorial team when there is a change of owner, for instance? So all these problems, policy problems, were in particular examined by the États généraux de l'information, which was a presidential initiative taken by Emmanuel Macron 2 years ago. So there was a big think tank that was thinking about these issues with a steering committee, and we worked in close relation with another group that was working at the same time with what was the Aguillon group on artificial intelligence. So all these initiatives were working at the same time. So we proposed some measures in order to restore the health of the media, but maybe I will simply finish by saying that we really need to renew the merger control to stay in the competitive world in order to ensure media pluralism. In the media sector today, you have a twofold process in the control of mergers in France. You have the usual control of economic concentration on the basis of competition law, nothing new compared to other sectors, by the competition authority. And then you have a different concept, which is pluralism. Pluralism is not exactly differentiation as we understand it in economics. The control of media pluralism by sectoral regulatory authority, in France, the ARCOM. And this control by the ARCOM is based on thresholds that are defined media by media. That is, you cannot hold more than X newspapers, Y TV channels, and so on. Second, so this is a problem due to the convergence of media. And second, this does not take into account at all the fact that the exhibition of media on social network may be very different from one media to the other. And so this regulation is really obsolete, and we propose in the États généraux de l'information to change that model of supervision. And we don't innovate that much, but a little bit. There are two alternative solutions that we propose to enhance the merger control in the media sector. First, there are methodology, notably developed by Andrea Pratt, working at MIT, to define the influence power of the media. Here, the power is assessed by the ability to reach readers, to reach listeners, viewers, etc. It's called the reach. And the strength of each party to a merger is assessed through its power of suggestion. That is, for instance, having videos has a stronger suggestion power than simply a text that has less suggestion power. Sound is in between, etc. And also according to its accessibility online or through social media. So, of course, this approach is compatible with maintaining a threshold, but a single threshold for each media, computed on all the means of diffusion of that particular media online with its influence power and its reach index. So this system is quite close to the German approach of media merger. In Germany, you still have threshold, but a single threshold that is computed not on market share, which has really no mean in a digital world, but on power of influence, taking into account social networks and so on. In the UK, they have a system which relies on no threshold at all, exactly like the analysis that makes the competition authority. The competition authority authorizes or blocks concentration, no matter the market share of the merging entity. It depends on are there newcomers that could come on the market and be a competitor, an efficient competitor or not. Well, the analysis is not based on any threshold that beyond which a merger would be blocked, for instance. In the UK, concerning the analysis of pluralism, in the UK, they have a circle analysis where the pluralism is examined on a global basis on all the aspects of the power and the influence of media. And we recommend to skip to go to this second step, maybe after a first step, because everyone was really frightening not to have threshold, that is things on which you can rely firmly. So I will stop there. I was very long, I'm really sorry for that. What I suggest is that I will be there all day long, so if you want to discuss further at coffee breaks or lunchtime, I'm available for that. Thank you very much.